Yeah, I have a question in terms of, you know, like if I really go watch pros play, there is a sound where it's loud, of course, but there's a balance where you truly can hear every instrument. And if you were going to, if you're playing with people and the sound is not all together, like for instance, you say you listen to the drums, but do you know when like there's a combustion of sound to the point where you actually can't even hear what your own instrument is doing?
Right.
Especially if you're not playing with in-ear monitors, you're not playing, I'm sorry, with in-ear headpieces, or you can't really, you know what you're doing, but you can't really hear it.
Right.
Uh, what is your, I mean, obviously, hopefully you're dialed in correctly, but if you, let's say you're not dialed in correctly, or maybe you are dialed in correctly, and you just can't really, you're cutting through, you think you're cutting through, but you just can't really hear it. Um, what is something that you would do in that context where it's, you're soloing and you just can't hear like exactly how good it sounds,
Hmm.
or what's going on with what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Well, you suffer through it the best you can, you know. Um, you try to learn. You try to get a better. You try to get a longer sound check next time. Of course, this is the problem. It doesn't even matter. Your sound check can sound great, and then you go to play, and it's totally different. Um, and you have to, try to search. You might move around and look for different places where the mix is a little bit different. Because you could two feet to the left or the right, and it can sound totally different. The way the beams of the cones of the different instruments are. Um, One of the things that I always found I needed to get the clarity is I always needed, even if I had a pretty loud, monitor, my amp, I usually never wanted to have my amps that loud on the stage. I wanted to have it come back through the monitors. I want the mic'd sound to come back. It's always smoother, it sounds better, and it's not as subject to the narrow beams, of the cones coming out of a 412 cabinet or something. Um, so, I wanted kind of always a fullness, in the sound. So as I got used to that and I got, okay, well, that's what I want. Well, then that's, of course, what I would try to dial in. But like you said, when you actually go to perform, especially if it's a loud environment, everything's competing for space, and you often don't get what you need to hear. And you might be able to, and I know exactly what you're saying, where well, yeah, I can hear what I'm playing, but I can't really hear it. You always need maybe just a little bit more to be able to experience that dance of pressure, and the amount of pressure on the strings, and these are very subtle things that your technique becomes accustomed to. And if you can't hear the impact of those things, then you kind of lose touch with the sound you're creating. And somebody else, might not notice the difference. Oh yeah, you sounded great. But if you lose the ability as the creator of that, you're producing the sound, if you lose the ability to be subtly and intimately connected to it, it's like trying to, instead of trying to think of an analogy, like instead of looking at maybe you're trying to do a painting and you have a tiny brush stroke and you're doing the details, you want to be able to control the details, and instead you're like trying to paint out here. That's what it feels like. you know. Um, so every performance, what I learned as I did more and more performance is every time I performed, I have to expect something's going to go wrong, in terms of the sound. I'm never, it's a very rare, I can probably count on one hand the number of performances where I actually had a sound that worked and that was inspiring to me and that made me played my best. 99% of all of them are like this, okay, I'm going through the motions and I'm doing the best I can with the fact that I'm not able to do it really, really well. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. That's why performance is difficult, you know, and it's something that over time, you get better and better at anything you do, and as you perform, you get better at learning how to function with these handicaps. And the handicap's almost always there. Now, maybe one day, if you become so successful that you're the headliner and you have all the control, and all the time to get what you want, you can really dial that in. And of course, then you can really dial it in because you're also working with pros, not sound guys who, they're the house sound man at this place and they think it sounds good. So F you, you run into a lot of that. You're playing at a club. But when you hire a really quality person who knows what you want, knows how to get it to you, and you can communicate with that person, now you actually have all the tools at your disposal to get the sound you want. But it's a long climb to get there. And there, I guess what I'm really saying is, I feel your question because um, it's difficult and it's something that you just have to work through. And so you've probably noticed that on many occasions. I've lived through that. That was my experience almost constantly when I was playing in any kind of club, any small club. But when I would get on a bigger stage, things were better. The biggest stages with the more professional sound guys, they know what you want even before you tell them what you want, and usually they're pretty much on it. So it's tough.
Would you say part of that also, because like even like if you think about like in the song in the spirit, when that lead line comes in, you kind of dial back a little bit and you're playing a little softer, so that lead line has opportunity to play to shine to be heard. So do you think it's also a combination of people also like dialing back as well
Oh
when
yeah,
certain parts are, or if
agreed.
like if the drums are being hit,
Yes. So here's the thing. Yeah, in a lot of kind of amateur, semi-pro bands that are like they're rehearsing in not great environments, so brick walls or whatever. You hear a lot of reflected sound. You can't hear what you really need to. Very much at this level, you find a lot of players who are kind of selfish players. Like they're still very focused on their instrument. And that's now to some degree, you have to be. You have to be focused on your instrument because, like I said, you'll need to hear the subtleties a little better. I need to hear a little bit more guitar than the drummer needs to hear or the bass player needs to hear or whatever. So if I just go in there and I crank the hell out of it and say, well, I'm louder because I have 400 watts, what do you got? And drown everybody out, that's not going to work either for the balance because it's going to rob them of their ability to get what they need to play. So you need to be a gracious player who understands not only what you need but what other people need. And then when you come into the playing situation, if you're aware of the dynamics of the song, what the song needs, now okay, well, I don't always need to be on top of this thing. That I have my moments, but for this part of the song, that's really the part, that guy is what needs to be heard, and I'm only here to support that. I'm here just to play this rhythm that just stacks up against the snare drum. So I'm going to make sure that I can hear the snare drum and I'm going to sit behind it, or I need to be under the vocal. I'm going to play, I'm going to back off my volume knob and clean it up even a little more just so that I don't, rage over the singer when he's trying to sing a verse that is low in his vocal range and he can't project. You know what I mean? So, back way off. But that's kind of like part of the professionalism of the musicians recognizing the bigger picture than just their part. They have to recognize that they're supporting the song. And if a musician is still fundamentally trying to support his own ego, first and foremost, it's all about me. It's all about people thinking how cool I am and how good I am and how talented I am. Well, that's not really going to create a good band, for the most part. It might impress the guitar players out there, but still.